Hey everyone, you'll recognize my guest today. She's my coworker, my friend, Dr. Suzanne Foxx. And we
Nice.
thought it would be fun to interview each other. It's going to be a series of interviews with all the coaches here, plant-based coaches. And we're going to start with Suzanne. And Suzanne, if you can just give us a little background first on when you started your plant-based journey.
Oh, sure. I was a vegetarian for several years. Way back in my late 20s, I became a vegetarian. I had gone to a lecture to hear a lecture from just a history lecture. I was taking classes at night trying to finish up my degree. And I was listening to a lady who was talking about slaughterhouse practices. And I was like, "Ugh, this is awful," just hearing about factory farms and things.
Yep.
And I saw all that, and I said, that can't really be true. So this was way before the internet, of course. So I kind of went to the library and looked it all up, and sure enough, she knew exactly what she was talking about, and it was that was what was happening. And I said, I can't stop this myself, but I can stop my contribution to it. So I said, that's it. I'm not eating any animals ever again. I don't know why I didn't make the connection between the dairy and the eggs at that point, but at that point, I'm
ask you, yeah.
not going to eat any more animals. Yeah, not going to eat any more animals.
Was it tough for you at first?
The toughest part, as for all of us, I think all the toughest part is just the peer pressure. It's really difficult with people, constantly where you get your protein, where you get your B12, all that business. They're pretty stuck on that, the general population. So you just kind of have to keep repeating yourself over and over again. And, obviously you're sitting in front of them extremely healthy and they're just worried about it for some reason. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
So did you notice any changes, even though you didn't give up dairy and eggs yet, but just giving up the meat, did you notice any changes?
Not really.
No.
Not really. I mean, I was thinner than most other people as a result of, I think it was just but I didn't notice like a whole lot of changes. I don't think there's much of a difference between what I call animal eaters and regular and vegetarians. Really, it's not. There's not that big of a difference, really.
That's true.
Yeah, there doesn't seem like that much of a difference. To make the real difference, you have to really, really cut them both.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you finally cut out the dairy, and were you eating eggs too at that
Yep.
time?
Dairy and eggs. And of course, when you don't eat animals, then you pretty much load up your plate with a bunch of dairy and eggs to make up for whatever you
Right.
Which doesn't make any sense, but that's exactly what I did.
Yep.
So, I mean, I had a lot of that going on. And as a result, I had, really bad skin condition. I had like psoriasis, like all over the back of my head, and it came down all onto my neck and chest. And it was bad. It was very bad. And I had a rash all over my hands as well. I had an eczema, kind of thing going on. And I was very hypertensive. So my blood pressure was always like 150/90, which isn't super high.
Yep.
I was real young, so it shouldn't be doing that, and I was very active. I went to the gym and ran and lift weights all the time, so I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah.
Were you on meds too at the time for blood pressure?
Yeah, they were trying to put me on medicine for it, but I kept ducking it. I'm sure, every time you go in there, they're like, "Hey, this is really high." And I'm like, "Ha, I'm just scared to be here, ha." But then one time I had to have like a minor surgical thing, like a cyst off my foot or something like that. And I went to the doctor and he said, "Your blood pressure is too high." I mean, I was like 32. I wasn't even that old,
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Your blood pressure is so high that I can't do the surgery on you until you get that controlled." And I said, "I'm just scared. I'm just scared because I'm here." And he said, No, what we're going to do, he put me in a dark room and he like put my feet up and he made me lay there for like 20 minutes in the dark. And he came back and checked it again and it was still high.
Wow.
And he said, "No, you have high." He said, "You're not scared to be here. You have high blood pressure. You need to get this treated."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." So that's when I found the book Eat to Live by Dr. Joel Fuhrman.
Yeah. Oh, you're like me then. Dr. Fuhrman changed my life.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I read it, and as I was reading it, I was like, I almost couldn't believe what it was saying. I was like, is this for real? Like, can we really get rid of all this stuff by just doing this? This is crazy. This is amazing.
Yep.
I'm sure you felt like that too.
I did.
Yeah.
Now, did you watch documentaries at that point or not yet? Like things
Not
like Forks
that,
Over Knives.
yeah, because this was way back in like 2008, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I became vegan, is right around there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing because just cutting out the dairy and the eggs, it was like overnight blood pressure back to normal. And the weird part is that rash that had been with me for 15, 20 years at that point, it was in 3 weeks, it was completely gone.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It was amazing. I was like, what is that about? That was incredible. I didn't realize, like, those are really bad for you.
And when you first tried this vegan version of the diet you were on, you probably never expected all your skin conditions to go away.
Nope. I was just looking to get rid of that blood pressure because I had actually been to my skin doctor. I was using all the nasty coal tar shampoos and all the creams and everything that's just, you have to try to keep it under control as much as possible. But, because every time you sit back in a chair, I mean, the whole chair is like covered with dandruff. It's really embarrassing. It's really gross looking. It's just an embarrassing condition to have. So, I asked the doctor about it. I said, do you think there's anything that I'm eating that could be triggering this? And he said, no, I don't think so. And even if there was, people don't change their diets to change their health. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to go back and show him that he was wrong and that I got rid of it.
I'd love you to.
There's no reason to go back because I don't have any reason to go anymore. And I haven't been there in, 12 years now. So.
And I've heard that too in different times. Doctors just don't know. They're not taught nutrition. And fortunately, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, you're a physical therapist. And I'm wondering, have you helped some of your clients or have you just casually mentioned sometimes that they should try a plant-based diet? I'm just wondering their feedback.
Yeah, when you first walk into my office, I have a table set up with a whole bunch of books and literature on it that advise people to try a plant-based diet. And I actually have a little sign on there that says, almost all chronic disease is caused or made worse by eating animals.
That's great.
It's right there. It's right there in the front. So it's pretty clear right from the front that I feel very strongly about it. And then in my office, I have posters, kind of like little posters that say stuff like when you, if diet is right, medicine is of no need, stuff like that, just things like that.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all over the place. And when I first interview patients, when I'm talking to them, I always say, okay, you're here for your back pain or you're here for your shoulder pain or whatever it is that you're here for. Now we're going to fix this. But if you also want this other stuff gone, we can work on that too if you want to, but that's totally up to you. I'm just going to mention to you, I'm going to tell you how it's done. And if you're interested in doing that, we can work on that too. But if not, we don't have to ever talk about it again. And we'll just stick with working on your knee or whatever.
I'm really glad you do that because so many doctors really try to avoid it. And again, they're not taught that, but I think a lot of them are also afraid that the clients won't change.
Well, a lot of them, it's about probably 2 or 3% of my clients do change. They do. And they have like remarkable results. Just, completely. They'll lose 70, 80, 90 pounds in less than a year. And, just have so much energy and just lose, taking pills of all kinds. It'll be over. The whole situation is over because, I always tell them, okay, you're taking all of this medicine for hypertension, this medicine for type 2 diabetes, this medicine for cholesterol. You're taking all of that because you're eating this food. If you stop eating this food, the need for that medicine will go away. Now, don't stop taking that medicine until you check. Keep checking on it because, it's hard to be consistent when you first get started.
Right.
But always know that you're basically, this is the medicine you're taking is the antidote for the food you're consuming. And if you didn't consume the poisonous food, then you wouldn't need to take the medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. People need to hear that message because they often don't know themselves.
They have no idea. There's no idea. No idea. Nobody's bothered to explain it as clearly as that.
Yeah. They just blindly take pills, unfortunately. I know so many people like that.
Oh, yeah. It's they say by the decade. So if you're in your 40s, you're usually taking 4 prescriptions. If you're in your 50s, you're taking 5 prescriptions. In your 60s, you're taking 6. The number just keeps going up.
Yeah, exactly. So
90% is just lifestyle.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I were talking, and I know you had an experience with the scare with lupus. I wonder if you could tell our audience about that.
Yeah, I sure can. What happened was during COVID, all of us were bored and doing a lot less activities than we normally do. And, I thought I'd have a little fun with food. You know how you like to do that every once in a while, just start experimenting with things. And, my husband was home a lot. So I said, he's not a vegan. So, he does his thing and I do mine. But I said, let's try to eat some meals together and we'll do some things, I'll try to make them more interesting by adding some occasional vegan processed food into my diet. So I said, we'll just, every once in a while I'll have some Impossible burgers or some Impossible sausage or, something like that. Just a couple days a week. It won't be that big a deal. And, I started adding cream to my coffee, just vegan. It was all vegan. It wasn't,
Right.
it wasn't based, but it's still just adding, it was more processed food than I'd been eating in probably 10 years, 8 or 9 years at that point. And I said, I'll just go ahead. It can't be harmful. Obviously, it's just fine. So I added it in. And then within a few months, it's just, I didn't notice it at the time. So it seemed like it was coincidental, but I started having like really bad joint pain. And it would show up like, at first it was like my knee was really sore. And then it would last for about 24 hours and then it would go away. And then my finger, like one joint, like one knuckle on my finger would get like really hot and red. And then it would go away within 24 to 36 hours. And then it just started getting worse and worse to the point where it was multiple joints flaring and it was happening daily. So I was taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen to try to, 3 or 4 times a day just to try to get it under control, to like squish it down. I'm like, what is going on? Why is this happening? And you remember during COVID how difficult it was to get in to see the doctor anyway.
Yeah.
So one day I went to the urgent care after work. I'm like, I can't even walk. I have to go to the urgent care. I can't wait for my regular doctor. This is ridiculous. But by the time I got to the door, they were locking it and closing it, and remember, stuff like that. So I was like, this is awful. So I said, let me just make an appointment with my regular doctor. I'm going to get this taken care of. And one thing led to another, and it took, 3 or 4 months to finally get that appointment. And when I finally went in there, she said I had to take, a blood test to check and see what was going on. She said, this looks really like autoimmune stuff that's going on here. So I said, okay. Well, she took the blood test and looked at it. And she said, I'm a primary care doctor. I don't have the expertise to diagnose you with this condition, but it truly looks like this is lupus. You have lupus going on. And I was like, I was shocked. I was completely shocked. I was like, are you kidding me right now? That is a very serious disease. I can't have that. I literally can't have that. There's no way. Yeah. So she told me I had to make an appointment with a rheumatologist. So I went ahead and made an appointment with a rheumatologist. But you remember back in COVID, it took 5 months to get into a rheumatologist. So, but all she had to say was, hey, this looks like lupus. And all of a sudden I thought, Dr. Brooke Goldner,
Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah. Wrote that book, Goodbye Lupus. And I was like, and I thought to myself, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? How did this happen? And it occurred to me, it's all that stuff. It's the processed food. I let the processed food creep back in. Yeah.
And Dr. Goldner has that information free out there for those who would take the time to, watch her videos and the information.
Yeah.
He also takes clients as well, but so you I imagine just did your own research about and she keeps it free for everybody.
I stopped eating the impossible food. I stopped the cream in the coffee. I stopped coffee altogether. I just got rid of everything. I got rid of all the stuff and just went back to what we are supposed to be doing. I went back to the produce department. So now my food groups are the produce department, rice, beans, and oatmeal. That's pretty much it.
And how long did it take for the symptoms to go away after that?
It took about a month. Because at first I didn't think it was going to work because, I was so scared and I was in so much pain. And it was really hard because, just trying to get out of your car when you're in that much pain is difficult. I kept trying to take, like I said, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen 3 or 4 times a day just to squish it down hard enough where I could work. It was bad. It was really, really bad.
It probably gave you an appreciation too of what your clients are going through, I imagine.
It sure did. Yeah. I felt terrible for them. If they're in that much pain, no wonder they come to see me. No wonder they pay that copay. It was very, very bad.
Yeah.
It was very, I mean, on a scale from 1 to 10, it was easily an 8 out of 10. It was very, very bad pain. And the thing I'm so grateful for is that it didn't, like, it would never last. Like my hand, like my pinky would hurt like really bad. Like, I'm not just talking like you can ignore it or something. Like even when you're laying down going to sleep, you can feel it throb, throb, throb. I mean, it's really bad.
Yeah.
And then as the day would go on, within 24 hours, it would be gone again completely. Like that part would be gone, but then now it's your elbows now doing it. So it would just keep switching. It was what they call migrating joint pain.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So when I finally got in to see the rheumatologist, I explained what had happened, and I told her that I was currently, about 70%, 80% clear compared to how it was when I first made the appointment. And she said, well, we'll do all the blood tests and all the x-rays and we'll see what's going on. So she did 12 blood tests and 14 x-rays.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was absolutely nothing on any of them.
That's amazing.
Gone. It was completely gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was completely gone. My blood work that I'd had 5 months before at the regular doctor, she repeated all that stuff too, and everything was 100% back to normal. Everything was
good.
Yeah.
Did you tell her what you did? I'm sure you did.
Of course I told her what I did. And she said, that has nothing to do with it. Sometimes sometimes these things just flare and come up and down like that. She said, expect it to come back. Here's my card. Call me when you need me.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. It's been about 1.5 years since this all happened, and I haven't had to call her, so I'm so thankful for that.
Awesome. Now, what do you think it is? Because I have that same thing within me too, that we just kind of fight back. Like I heard I had hypertension. You wanted to put me on pills. And I got back with a different solution, and you did as well when you heard about lupus.
Yeah.
And there's other people who just go along with the doctor, and they don't do their own research. And I'm just wondering, do you think you have to have a certain kind of personality, I think, to go through what we did and just not, just not go down that road.
I don't know what that spark is.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, it's most people just feel so hopeless and helpless. They think, well, this is my body and now it's just turning to garbage and I'm just going to have to live like this.
Yeah, they let it happen almost, Yeah,
they like slide into it and just accept whatever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason it interests me, my dad, I told you about that. He has arteritis and he refused to change his diet. And, that involves joint pain too. And I think it would make a world of difference, but he doesn't have that same drive I do in, doing research and wanting to get better naturally. And it's just interesting to me. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, they're not sure if it's going to work. Do you know what I mean? I think because if this was like the natural course, if every time you went to the doctor, he said, hey, I want you to eat these 5 fruits, these 5 vegetables every single day, have rice, have beans, don't eat anything else. Just try this for 3 weeks and then come back and we'll see if you actually need those pills. And they had doctors only have, my brother's a ER doctor, and he told me that they get 8 minutes per patient for the most part. And he said he never spends more than 4 minutes actually talking to a patient face to face, unless he's like inserting some kind of tube or saving their life in some way. And he said that there's no way that they have time or energy to do that, even if they believed it could be done.
Yep.
They just don't have it. And they're like drinking from a fire hydrant. There's so many patients and the need is so high. I don't know about you, but when I go to see the doctor, I go like once every year or two just for a regular checkup to make sure everything's ticking away, running like it's supposed to. And when I go there, they look at my blood work and they look at me and they go, good God, how did you get these numbers? These numbers are incredible. You must eat nothing but vegetables and run all the time. And then I say, yeah, that's pretty much kind of what I do. And then they say stuff like, but you eat fish, right? But you eat eggs. Where do you get your protein? Oh my God. And they go, well, I don't know how this happened. Anyway, on to the next patient, because obviously you don't need my help, but somebody else does. And right next door, there's like 16 other patients that are in desperate need of a doctor.
You just brought up a memory for me of why I dropped my last doctor. I got fed up because he said to me, he knew my blood work was awesome and everything. And happy with everything. And he knew I was vegan, but he didn't understand that because he says, "You mean you don't even eat fish or eggs?" And I realized that I needed a plant-based doctor in my corner. So now
Yeah.
I have a plant-based doctor, and he sees these numbers, which are typical, and so he's happy for me. But I mean, it's not a surprise because he's a plant-based doctor. He knows about it. But
Yeah. And the thing is this, I always tell people like your parameters, like your health parameters. No, it's not everything, but it's not nothing either. You want to have your blood pressure has to be 120/70 or lower.
Yep.
Your BMI has to be under 25 or, between 18.5 and 25. That's where the health is right there.
Exactly. Yep.
And then you have to have an A1C that's less than 5.6, and your cholesterol has to be under 150, with your HDL being much higher than your LDL, and
Yep.
your resting heart rate should be under 70. It's just that's where it should be. And those are your 5 indicators of how healthy you are. You may need to work on 1 or 2 of them, but you shouldn't have to work on all of them. And the people who actually have those kind of numbers are unfortunately extremely rare, even though those are the normal numbers.
Yep. And though those normal numbers you're talking about, I think they're very common whole food plant-based people. It's
Yes.
very achievable. Yep.
Yeah. If you test 100 plant-based people, like the ones that are truly plant-based,
Yep.
I bet 90 of them will have those numbers.
Yep. I agree.
It's just crazy.
It is. A few other questions. I'm wondering, what is there a documentary that really turned your life around? Because for me, it was What the Health. I mean, there were a lot of documentaries, but that one really had a big effect on me. And what one do you think had the most effect on you?
It wasn't a documentary. It was actually a book. It's the China Study by Dr. T.
Yeah.
Colin.
Yeah.
That's the one that really, really, like I read Dr. Furman's stuff. I read that and I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And then I read Dr. Campbell's book. And when I read that book, like it was like something shifted in my head when I was halfway through it. And I literally opened up my refrigerator and threw out all the dairy products immediately. And I thought to myself, I'm raising sons. At the time, my sons were teenagers. And I said, I'm raising sons and I can't be helping grow a giant prostate gland in this kid. This is horrible. I can't do this to them.
Yeah.
And I can't, make them have cystic acne based on what's in the refrigerator. This is horrible.
Yep.
Can't. And it's not like I knew that they wouldn't eat it ever again. They go to their friend's house.
At least they're not getting it from you as a source, which I think is great.
I wanted them to know that. I wanted them to know your mom is no longer contributing to your problems.
Exactly.
And she doesn't think you should eat it, and you shouldn't. It's important.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, as we start this plant-based coaches initiative, what is your vision for some of your clients? How do you think you can help them?
Oh, wow. Well, I am all about that health optimization. Those numbers I was talking before, all 5 of those numbers, my goal is to get the clients that work with me to get those numbers normalized.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All of them. Yeah. I think that's the goal because that's how you get your health back. And when you have your health, you can do anything. You can do anything. Like literally the whole world is open to you. If you don't have your health, you are so limited on your ability to do anything at all. You can't, there's so many things you can't do. Everything is so limited. Like you can't go hiking. You can't, go roller skating if you want to. You can't go riding bikes. You can't go swimming. You're always worried about what you look like in outfits and stuff. But if you have your health, like your real health is all back, you have everything. Yeah. Everything is working normally and everything is working perfectly. You can do so many things with your life when you have your health.
I love that.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. This is very interesting. And, I just wanted the audience to learn more about you because you have an amazing story.